Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jen Marples Show. Today, I have a most fabulous guest, and her name is Shannon Watts, and she is the founder of Moms Demand Action. So, you probably have heard of that because that was Shannon's mission and her purpose and passion back. If we can scroll back to 2012 when Sandy Hook happened, which was traumatizing for every single one of us out there, especially mothers, because my kids were all the same age of all those poor children who perished in Sandy Hook. So Shannon is the one who took one for the team and stood up and said enough and formed Moms Demand. So I know I have been following Shannon and Moms Demand for, I guess, now over a decade. And, I was following Shannon online. I'm like, you know what? She is a bad ad midlifer that needs to be on this show because now I consider you a Shero, by the way. So I need to tell you that because you've done such amazing work in the world. I said, I need to have her on here because we need to hear your story. And I know you've recently sort of stepped down from running the organization and you're doing some new things. So we're going to get into all of it. But what you all need to know is that, and I'm wondering, Shannon, did someone bestow this upon you? She's been called the summoner of women's audacity.
Yes, actually, my friend Glennon Doyle has referred to me as that, and I love that because we all have that inside us. And what an honor it's been for me to help so many hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of women walk through that door in the last decade. It's really been the honor of a lifetime. I didn't know that I had that audacity inside me. I really had to summon it to start Moms Demand Action. But we all have it inside us, and we can use it to accomplish big and small things. And I think a lot of us start to realize that and feel that in middle age.
I love this. And I love Glennon Doyle. And I'm so glad she was the one who gave you this. I should have known that because I've been following Glennon since she was just on Facebook since the dawning of time. She's another Shero of mine. So it's no doubt, I'm just not shocked that you guys are friends. But I love that. And we're going to really get into that because I think that's really transformative. And it's really important for women to hear, especially in midlife, because my moniker is you're not too fucking old. So that is like to do whatever you want. And if that's just to sit on your couch and be, then just sit on your couch and be. And if it's to start a worldwide movement, then now's your time to start your worldwide movement. But before I get into it, I also want to let everyone know that you were named a Time Magazine 100 Most Influential People, and you are a Forbes 50 over 50 Changemaker, which thank God they finally did the 50 over 50 because I was done with the 30 under 30. Like, give me a break because there's so many incredible women doing so much 50 and well beyond 50. And you wrote a book, Fight Like a Mother, which I love because Fight Like a Mother is just, I think that those are just fighting words. And I know, like, if you want shit to get done, ask a mom. Moms will get shit done. So it was Fight Like a Mother, how a grassroots movement took on the gun lobby and why women will change the world. Hallelujah. So Shannon, this is my official welcome to the show. I am so honored to have you here today because, like I said, you're a Shero. Been following you and absorbing you and being in this world of Moms Demand for over a decade now. So I'm just so excited to get into it with you today and share your brilliance and your audacity with my listeners.
Oh, thank you. It's such a thrill to be here.
So, for those who might not know, take us through a little bit of your background and how you came to start Moms Demand.
So I had been in corporate communications for, something like 15 years, and I was taking a break from that career to blend my family with my husband's family. We had been married only a couple of years prior, both second marriages. I had 3 kids, he had 2, ranging in age all the way from elementary school through college. And so I thought, I'm just going to take this break. And I was actually starting to apply and looking at other opportunities in corporate communications. And I was at home, all my kids were at school. I was folding laundry in my home in Indianapolis. And there was breaking news on the television in the background that there was an active shooter inside a school in Newtown, Connecticut. And like so many moms and women and others that day, I just sort of stopped what I was doing and watched this horrific tragedy unfold. And I was so devastated that 20 children and 6 educators had been slaughtered in the sanctity of an American elementary school. I cried all day. I went to bed in tears. I woke up the next day full of rage. I was so blinded by my anger that I didn't really know what to do. And I thought, okay, I'm going to join something like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. You know, if you grew up in the 80s, you know how influential that organization was culturally, legislatively. It was like this really pissed off group of moms who were doing all kinds of things to bring attention to these preventable, senseless drunk driving deaths. And I thought, like, why doesn't that exist for gun safety? Because I couldn't find anything like that online. I had 75 Facebook friends. I'm not sure why I thought my call to action on a new Facebook page I created was going to get traction, but it did. It went viral. I think in part because I did have that background in communications. And, you know, in the next couple of weeks, what I thought was going to be an online conversation began turning into the largest offline organization in the nation, led by women.
I want to rewind back to that that point of rage, because I remember when Sandy Hook happened, and I remember just my kids were about the same age at that time that happened, and crying for a week straight. You know, just like you, just being completely traumatized. And I was actually surprised that people weren't traumatized by it. And so the sad and tragic thing is we continue to be traumatized because of everything that's going on every day. I mean, you know the stats. I think we all know the stats. I mean, I think isn't gun violence is the number one cause of death
Yes.
for children right now in the US, which is just insane. My own children have been part of an active shooter situation at the school that they went to. That was one safe. And, you know, it touches everyone in every community, and it's really scary. And the fact that obviously all of our kids now, it's like, oh, safety drill, like it's just become par for the course, and it's just not okay. So thank you for, you know, taking one for the team and going out there and doing it. Because my second question for you then is going to be, I'm sure you encountered resistance that I can't even imagine, because your big foe is the gun lobby. How was that?
You know, I think I was emboldened a little bit by my naivete. I was sort of living in a bubble. You know, I was this white suburban mom who was suddenly afraid her kids weren't safe in their schools, not realizing, you know, that this was an epidemic that Black and brown families had been dealing with for decades. Or if I'd realized it, I hadn't acted. And so I really didn't realize, first of all, that this had become a third rail issue, not just with Republicans, but with Democrats too. And I also didn't realize that I would immediately begin getting threats of death and sexual assault. So I went into it not knowing much about the issue, not knowing much about organizing or the legislative process, and certainly not realizing that I was going to spend the next decade traveling using an alias with, you know, a security guard. Had I known a lot of those things, you know, I might have been more hesitant. I'm glad I didn't. Certainly there was a huge learning curve, but if you think about it in terms of, if I lose my children, I have nothing left to lose. What option do you have other than to act and to be willing to stand up to extremists whose goal really is to silence and intimidate us? And when 120 people are shot and killed in this country every day and hundreds more are wounded, and as you said, gun violence is now the leading cause of death among children and teens in this country. What option do you have other than to act?
Right. I something came up when you were just saying that, of the fact that women, when faced with the injustice, it's like, haven't we been the ones all along who have been fighting for massive change? And I know you see some of your contemporaries in whatever aspect or realm it may be. Like, we've got Me Too, we've got our children dying, we've got our laws being repealed in the country. We all know Roe versus Wade. There's so much. And, it's like we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. And I firmly believe, you've been at this a while, but I firmly believe that in 2020, when multiple structures and things were getting broken down, I firmly believe so many of us were sort of tapped. I just saw women rising in a way I've never seen before. And I kind of put myself in that category. I happen to be focusing on midlife women, but I said, we're the change we want to see. So if there's this injustice, there's injustices everywhere, that we've got to be the ones to act. And I think you said you're mad and you've got to be the one to do it. And if you think about, am I qualified or this, that, and the other? I mean, you're qualified because you care. We're just all qualified to do this. And I just think it's really beautiful, because I think I've been exploring this theme of duality, of like two things can be true at once. It's one thing over here is like you can feel like everything's falling apart. And the other thing over here is, but women are amazing and women are taking strides and making some incredible shit happen, for lack of a better term, like really going out there on a limb and fighting. And so I love to see this. It's like women rising. We know there's something that needs to happen. And I'm a little metaphysical in that realm of like, we're going to be the ones to make the change. We're going to be the ones to make the change. So I have a question for you, because I know you were able to do it. I was kind of able to get up and do it. And I also, by the way, have a PR and communications background. So maybe there's something in our backgrounds that like prepared us. And if we've done PR, I think everyone out there who's ever done this, if you know, I think it gives you a special skill set and maybe like a little bit of a toughness. But for a lot of women listening who might feel helpless, what would you say to them? Like, what could be the thing? Because everything feels, I know for a lot of women, so insurmountable. Like, how can I, myself, Mary in, Indiana, like possibly make a difference when it seems like everything is breaking down left, right, and center? What would you say to Mary in Indiana, who's like, how can I make a difference, but I'm so overwhelmed and I don't feel like I'm qualified?
I really think that is a story we tell ourselves that holds us back. And I meet so many brilliant women who feel afraid of stepping out for so many reasons, criticism, not knowing enough, judgment. Um, they want to cross all their T's and dot all their I's, and they want to know everything there is to know before they step out. They say they're going to delay it until they're ready, or until their kids are older, or until their husband wants them to do it. Whatever the reason is, I think we can find so many reasons to delay, but we all have a spark burning inside us. For me, it was my communications background, my interest in journalism, telling the story, activism. I was raised in Rochester, New York, where I was taught to really see people like Harriet Tubman and Susan B. Anthony and others as heroes because they lived in my town. So I think all of that came together to create this fire inside me that when I allowed that spark to be nurtured, it sort of lit a flame in other women too. And if we don't do that, if we don't think about our desires and our passions and pursue them, we won't live a life that is fulfilling ultimately. We all want to be able to look back at the end of our lives and know we pursued those things that, made us burn. And I just meet so many women who have so much inside them, but they don't uncover it. They don't discover it during their lifetime. And we deserve that as women. And in our generation, in Gen X, I think it's taken us until our 40s to kind of figure that out, because we're still, sandwiched between the traditional boomers and the more avant-garde millennials. And so I feel like I have both of those things in me. It's a very long way of saying we deserve to pursue the things that we're passionate about. And I am not saying that every woman who has something inside them has to change the world. But you should bring your gifts to your family and your community and your state and maybe, yes, your country and the world, whatever that ends up looking like for you. But don't let that spark die out, because at the end of your life, you will regret it.
What you just said reminded me, and I can't remember who said this, or it was something to the effect that you are, you've got something, burning deep inside you. And if you feel like, okay, you can't access it or it's too hard, and for all the reasons you said, we do a really good job of talking ourselves out of things. Um, this one was saying, she's like, the most radical thing we can do as women is just be ourselves and be sort of fully present and be fully healed. So to your point, we don't have to go out and save the world. But if you show up, Shannon, if Jen shows up, it's just, I'm fully embodied and I'm standing up for what I stand up for. And I am a supporter of the people in my community. And I'm just saying hi to folks around me. Like that in and of itself has this ripple effect, because somebody else would be like, oh gosh, someone said hi to me today. And I think we discount those really little things because we always feel, I was just having this conversation, like we all feel we have to save the world. And I don't know, it's like, I'm going to save the world. And then I've got these kids and then this and then that. And then you can just crumble down and like not do a damn thing, but just realizing just what you're saying, knowing that you're worthy. You don't need any more degrees. You don't need any more education. We're all at this, especially at midlife, perfectly equipped to do whatever we want. And what we want could just be just to be sort of that upstanding citizen in society and just being a nice person and just being present, relevant. And that has this ripple effect. I think we underestimate, because we've been taught, like you said, the 80s, the more and more and more, and the checklists and the achievements and all the things that we're supposed to be doing, and realize a lot of that's just a crock of crap. And if we can just show up fully embodied, that's a radical act.
Yeah, I had a conversation recently with a friend, and we were talking about we always feel like we're being told to do more. And I think, we can do more, but we can also do less, but we have to do different. And, continuing on this metaphor, like if we want to live on fire, that might just mean going to therapy. That might mean having the tough conversation with our parents. It might mean ending a relationship, but it also might mean you have this passion inside you for helping women figure out what to wear, trying to get some clients and marketing yourself and being brave and being okay with failing. Or maybe it is, starting an organization or becoming a volunteer or an activist, whatever that is. But I don't even know that we have been given permission to think about those things.
I would agree, because we've been told, I talk about this a lot. My whole thing is, we're always told, like I say, you're not too fucking old here, but it's really, that's my rallying cry. And it's really representative of, we've all been told you're too fat, you're too thin, you're too loud, you're too quiet, we're too this, we're too that. I've been told everything in the book. And the thing is, we just have to toss that aside because that's society. We're not saying that to each other. It's that patriarchal thing. It's what advertising has been telling us since we've been reading magazines at 12 or 13. So there's all this external noise, and we have to learn to just shut it off. And that's why I feel like at this stage in life too, aligning yourself with the right groups of people, the right friendships, and like you're saying, you got to get out of relationships and things that aren't serving you. That includes friends. You got to like fill yourself back up, or fill the plate up with people who are supportive of you and are kind of doing the damn thing. And it could just be like, I want to go get fit. Great. You need people to help you do that, or start a business, or whatever it is. I firmly believe that that's so important. And we just have to give ourselves permission and know that we're worthy just by being on this earth. Like your friend and my muse, Glennon Doyle, would say, we're worthy just from waking up in the morning. But we've been told that, we've been battered down pretty much by everything in life, saying we're not good enough and we need X, Y, and Z to do the next thing. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's a crying shame for any of you listening to think that you're not going to go out there and do the thing you want to do, or offer up the thing that special thing that only you can deliver to people. So this is a great entree into this question I want to ask you, which is, and this is going on your, being called the summoner of women's audacity. What would you say to midlife women to help them unleash their audacity?
Well, I think, at least I hope that what I have done sets an example. I'm not a unicorn. I wasn't this amazing leader who was expected to do great things, and everyone was just like, oh, of course Shannon did this. I mean, the opposite is true. I struggled my whole life with ADHD, untreated ADHD. I barely made it through high school. I barely made it through college. Um, I found out as my brain matured that it got easier to manage. And in fact, it's sort of, this is cliched, but it has become my superpower through Moms Demand Action because I can focus so long on one thing, hyper focus. But don't think that whatever you see as your personal failings or obstacles or drawbacks, those things are a story we tell ourselves. And it was a story I told myself for a very long time. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to my inner critic or the external critics. When I started Moms Demand Action, I had plenty of people say to me, you're not the right person. You don't know enough. This already exists. We don't need this. You can never do it. It won't work. There were so many people telling me I couldn't do this, including myself. But at the end of the day, I didn't listen to the naysayers. I listened to my gut. And what was the worst thing that could have happened? I could have failed. And I just would have done something else. But I didn't. And again, I'm not saying you have to do what I did. You don't have to take that kind of giant project on. But don't tell yourself that you can't do whatever it is you're passionate about.
I love that. I will say, working with so many women, that our inner critic is probably the biggest one that's sitting up there on your shoulder. And when you do go to try anything new, there will, and especially the people closest to you are probably going to be the ones that tell you you're crazy, you're not going to make money at it, or who are you to do that? Or they just know you how you've always been. So they cannot wrap their heads around you doing something different or trying to level up or step up and out. And it's rattling to a lot of people. And I like to say to everyone, it's kind of, you just have to release all those expectations and not care what people think. Because if you start to care what people think, you won't do anything. It'll be paralyzing and you won't actually get off the couch to do anything. So I love all that you said, because we've just got to give ourselves permission, full stop, and know that you've got something to give, and know that you're going to encounter resistance. And then, and like you say, if you fail, we've all failed a million times in other things, but it's not really failure, right? It's a stepping stone on the road to whatever you're doing. And you just take the lesson and you keep on going. I love this part of the conversation. So I want to talk a little bit about what you're focusing on today. Because as I was stalking you online and I get your Substack and all of that, I, of course, perked up because I saw you posting a little bit about menopause and midlife. And I'm like, ooh, I wonder if she's coming over into this side of the world where we're all talking about midlife and menopause and all of that. So what are you interested in now and sort of what's next?
Yeah, I decided to step back from my role as a leader at Moms Demand Action after nearly 11 years. It'll be 11 years this December, and this is my last year. I have always seen a founder's role as finite. I never imagined I would do this my whole life. And after we passed federal gun safety legislation, I just knew in my heart it was time to step back. And I'm so excited about all of the other things that I'm thinking about. I really thought the first thing I would do is take a year off and rest. But I got a call. I was running on the treadmill and I got a call from Maria Shriver. And she said, what do you think about writing a book about women and leadership? And so I dove right into that. It's a much different lifestyle. I was working with a team. I had crises unfolding every day because of all the gun violence in this country. And I was traveling all the time. And now I'm doing this very solitary thing of staring at my computer and thinking of things I want to say. And so that is really interesting and a fun phase for me. I, as you said, started a Substack. I was trained as a journalist when I went to college. And so writing is something that is a creative outlet that I have missed for a long time. So I'm just posting a couple times a week on Substack. For my book, I'm having a lot of conversations with some truly amazing women, and I'm making sure that I'm taping all those, so I can release them, part of the book promotion, and as podcasts. I'm still thinking through that. But I just, I like online and in my Substack to talk about issues that impact me, that impact women of all ages. I am a mom of five who are children, or who are all now adults, and so I have some wisdom, to some hard-earned wisdom to share. And I am going through menopause, and I found it to be a very strange experience, because my doctors don't seem to know how to help me or be willing to help me. And that's really strange, because I know there's a lot of data out there that shows that me having access to treatments will not only prevent suffering from symptoms, but protect all of my organs. And I really would like to do that before it's too late. So I'm just kind of sharing those experiences that I'm having, and as a woman and as a mom, it's really a fun way to connect with people other than just talking about gun violence tragedies. That will always be important to me, and I will always be promoting gun safety and the people working on it. But I'm having a lot of fun in this role of hopefully empowering other women to take risks and leaps in their life.
Well, I love it. And we get to pivot, and we get to change as many times as we want. So I firmly believe that somebody was telling I posted something about you're not too fucking old. She's like, we're not old till we're dead in the grave. I'm like, exactly. I'm like, we have like 80 more chapters left if that's what we want. And so we get to do whatever we want. And I'm glad you're focusing on women. And I want to talk about the menopause thing for a minute, because it's very deep and layered and nuanced. And I've had a lot of guests on the show. I've had a lot of doctors. I'll connect you to some of these women if you're in search of more answers. But for everyone, go back and listen to Dr. Suzanne Gilbert Lenz on that podcast, because she really has devoted her life to menopause education. And she wrote a book, Menopause Boot Camp. And the thing for you to know, if you didn't know, and for everyone listening, again, it's that most doctors in medical school get 0 to maybe 20 minutes of education on menopause. And so there are resources for them to get educated. But if you're not getting what you want, you've got to search it out. And I'm going through my own menopause journey as well. I'm postmenopausal at 53, but the brain fog I can't take, the night sweats. And then it's like this compounding thing that if you're getting like night sweats, but then you can't sleep and then you wake up groggy, it's just this whole thing, this cycle that happens. And there's another woman, and you should read this book if you haven't read it. It's called The Upgrade by Dr. Luann Brizendine. Have you heard of this one, Shannon?
I have not.
So she's a psychiatrist, and she actually lives in Marin. She's actually close to me. I'm going to have her. I keep threatening. I'm going to have her on the podcast, because I'm mostly done with the book. And she basically described most of us when you feel like you've got all this great energy and all this great ideas. Everything's just pouring out, but you can't focus it. You can't focus it the way maybe we could focus it before. But we're also really primed because we're not in these childbearing years of needing to multitask and do all these things. So where you are now, your kids are out the door. Mine are almost out. Most of our kids are almost out the door. We have this ability. Our brains are ripe. Like we're like at this perfect phase to take on this another juicy sort of next step. Like we're literally at our prime, but it's understanding kind of what's going on with us. So I'm glad that I saw that post that you did putting on your like creams and all of that. I think the more we talk about it, the more we demystify it. There's like shame around it. And it's like, it's all of Gen X. There's like 50 or 60 million of us who are dealing with the symptoms of perimenopause or menopause right now. And it impacts and I won't go into all the details of the articles and women opting out of work and how, CEOs of companies are like, I feel like I'm going crazy, and it's a hormonal thing and it's situational. It doesn't mean it's the rest of our lives. So there are resources out there, and for everybody, just go listen to Dr. Suzanne just to have a refresh, because she gives a nice reframe and some things you should be asking your doctor and going to get what you need, because it's really a journey. It's really a journey. I digress, but I know I want you to be educated too. It's like, because there's so much information. It's also distilling all that information. So in this vein, I want to ask you this question. What do you think, apart from giving ourselves permission, are the biggest challenges right now for women in midlife?
I do think it is accessing information. I think we don't necessarily have this red tent for this age, this red tent being this idea of women who would come together and share information about menstruation and childbirth. And I think that needs to exist. I'm seeing more women step into that void to figure out how can we share in communities. There's a lot of loneliness and isolation because of social media, because we move around a lot, because of COVID. And this is a time when women our age should be coming together in community and sharing. And I say this as an introverted only child, who really hasn't had a lot of friendships. I've been so focused on my work and my family and my relationship with my husband. And something that I am committed to now that I am almost 53 is having more friendships. I've done a lot of interesting things in the last year as I was preparing for this transition from Moms Demand Action to whatever's next. That includes a psychedelic journey, the first in my life. It includes going to a retreat that was a circle of mostly women that, perfect strangers. I drove to Ojai and spent 4 days in this circle where we just shared. And, I went into that experience very closed off and came out feeling very changed. And I have girlfriends near where I live now, and I go on hikes with them, and we've been on vacations. And so I just think creating this community, having these conversations, sharing information, it's something that we have to prioritize in our lives.
I'm so glad you said that because I am coming off of a weekend where in one day I don't normally have this many social commitments, but one day I drove really far away to have lunch with friends because we're meeting in the middle, friends, 20 plus year friends. And within this little circle, we hadn't caught up really for 6 months. And this is to your point about friendships and not blowing those things off and going, oh, I don't want to drive too far. One woman's mother's cancer had come back. Her child tried to commit suicide, and that same child was going off to college. Another one is a single mom, lost her job, who's been trying to find a job for 6 months. Another one had like a minor stroke and had like a death in the family and is contemplating sort of retiring, but then not knowing what she wants to do with the rest of her lives. And then all the stuff that was going on with me. And that was just in one afternoon. And then I had another conversation later that night with somebody who was wrapped up in business with their fiance, found out this person was having issues. And then another child issue, which those are, of course, the ones that'll bring us to our knees. And so the summary of all that is that if we're not connecting with our friends, we feel isolated and alone. And I feel like it's the single and I think there is science behind this. It's a single it's the biggest predictor of sort of longevity and happiness is your community and your connection and having friends, because we can't go through this alone because we think we're going crazy and we think we're the only one having these experiences, but we're all having these experiences. And I do feel, and let me know what you think, I feel like we feel more alone now in our connected society than we ever have before we were all connected.
I agree with that. And in part, we do move around a lot, which you used to kind of grow up in your community, stay near your family. And that, plus we talked about COVID, plus we talked about feeling like we can just scroll and we're somehow connected, but that doesn't bring us gratification. And then, we get busy with raising our kids and, work. And I think once you get to age 50 or so, you feel like if you don't have friends that you can already rely on, maybe you can't make new ones. And I am proof that you can, because all of the women that I do things with, I met in the last few years. And it is a discipline. You have to kind of commit to it, and it's something you deserve. It's going back to this idea of you deserve friendships, but it's not as intuitive. It's not as easy, I think, as you get older, but there are things you can do. And that means continuing to reach out and committing time to it to create a community. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You can do it at any age.
100%. And my listeners have heard me say this before, that when COVID started, we didn't know what was going on. And we just had no idea what was going on. I threw myself into some groups and masterminds and this and that. And I actually launched my business and my podcast during COVID. And I have met people, it's probably the same as you, all over the world. Some I have never met in person. I maybe never will, but I consider them dear to me and we support each other. I'm Zooming with somebody today that I've not met in person, but who I count on because we share a couple different things in common, kids and businesses. And so we must be intentional. We have to make it a priority. So I always like to tell, women, look at your calendar, see what's on there, see the stuff, people that aren't filling you up. You got to erase all that stuff and be intentional about going to like a book, going to see like an author speak, or joining a new gym, or joining an online community, but stepping out of that zone. And you said you're an introvert. And so I know it's really hard to do for a lot of people. I'm pretty extroverted. So I'm the one who's grabbing people. I'm the one who's like creating events because I know the importance of these connections, because I think I put together my first women's event right before COVID. And that's when I had that same aha as you, that women are feeling so alone. But why? We're so connected, but it's not the deep, authentic connection. So the second piece of that I wanted to ask you is, or share and like kind of get your feedback on, is it's not just these surface level. We can't have these surface level relationships anymore in midlife. They need to go deep. It's better to have 2 friends that go really deep than 5 superficial friends, because there's simply too much going on right now. And I think that's what we're craving. We want to know that you had a fight with your husband. We want to know that you're having financial trauma. I need to know that you're having trouble managing your aging parents, because it can't just, we're beyond pretty perfect. It gets us nowhere. It just gets us more and more depressed. Do you think that's the case? I mean, what have you seen with you and your friend groups?
I do. I think the bigger your friendship net is, the better. And you're going to have some surface level friendships. You're going to have people who, cancel things. That's just par for the course when you're creating friendships. But, I recently went on vacation with 4 or 5 women, 3 of whom I really didn't know at all, one of whom I'd never met. We just sort of all showed up at the same place. And I had more fun than I have had in so long, and I think in part because it felt playful. We were in Mexico and we were doing relay races in the pool, and we were sort of letting loose, and that's just not something I necessarily do with my husband. It's just a different dynamic. It's certainly not something I do with my kids, and I realized I had been missing out on that for a long time, and it felt regenerative. And I want to keep having those kinds of moments. And I don't think you can replicate that with anyone but friends. And these weren't even, as I said, these weren't best friends. These weren't close friends. But we spent 4 or 5 days together and we really bonded.
I love that. We can't discount fun. And I had this conversation with somebody recently. I feel like, again, it's the pressure that we put on ourselves. Oh, we've got to do that. I got to tick these things off the box before you're allowed to have fun. Versus when you realize, if you allow yourself to have fun and go do those fun girl trips and do all that, that actually makes you better in all aspects of your life. So we need to go relax and have fun. And it's really important. Was having this conversation specifically with somebody about coming back to yourself. Cause you said it, it's like, I can't do this with my kids or my husband. It's like, oh, there's Shannon. She's like swimming in the pool and we're having relays and like, we're being goofy. So we get to strip away all those responsibilities and all that pressure that we all have on us. And I think it's so important. It's not talked about enough. And I'm going to say too, I truly believe you can go and you can meet strangers and you can go deep and like be closer to them than people you might know for 20 years. It just depends on like that wavelength and kind of where you meet people. So it sounds like you had that exact experience. You roll up, you're like, where have you been all my life? Let's go. Let's swim in the pool. Let's have fun. Let's dance on a table. So it's being open to that. And I think also just expecting that you're going to meet amazing people. On this realm of friendship and women, what do you think that women can do better to support each other, specifically in midlife?
Well, I think we have to have those connections in order to encourage one another. So it's a little bit starts there with having these communities. But I think we have to pull people up with us. When we are rising, I think that's a big part of this. Something I'm really committed to is using my expertise and my knowledge and my connections to help women decide they want to run for office, at any level. I'm on the board of Emerge America, and I really get a lot of joy out of doing whatever I can to help women prepare for and then actually to promote women when they decide they're going to run for office at any level, everything from school board and city council to Congress. But I think we should think about what skills that we have. We kind of going back to that spark that's inside us. How do we use that? How do we nurture it in ourselves, but also identify it and nurture it in other women? I referenced sort of generally this idea of what if you're really good at fashion? And the reason I reference that is because I have a friend who comes to my house twice a year and helps me go through my closet and figure out what outfits go together. What do you not have that you need going into the season? She's just brilliant. And I don't have that skill set at all. Like if it were up to me, I would just wear the same color and probably a sweatsuit all day, every day. And I said to her, this is your passion. You should be paid for this. You should find other clients. And I had a conversation with her where I talked to her about the marketing skills that she needed to promote herself. I connected her to women I knew who would use her services, and now they're clients. And I'm just trying to keep encouraging her. She feels very fearful of kind of stepping out there, putting herself out there. She doesn't think she knows enough, or why me, a little bit of imposter syndrome. And I can see that she is brilliant, and I can see that she could be very successful at that. And she can't see that yet. So I'm going to keep helping her until she, has the client base she needs and feels like this is something she can pursue.
I love that. And it's really important. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I always preach that. It's like, if you see how you can help people connect, encourage, because we all need that encouragement. I'm sure you need that I know I need it. And I'm the one who's doing the encouraging, but we all need it. And whenever anyone's stepping into anything new, no matter what you've accomplished, you're always going to be stretching yourself if you're going to this next thing. And it's so important that we support each other doing that. It's one of my, I bang this drum all the time. And if you see that, we all have those women that we know that are like genius, but we've got to drag them along. Like, how can I help you? What do you need? Because women won't ask for help. I think we're really good at giving, and really good at not asking for help. I'm in a group where it's always encouraged. It's like, what do you need? What do you need? Because we're all quick to come in and save and serve. And it's like, but no one's all of a sudden, I think that's again how we've been programmed, serve, serve, serve. And we forget, like, oh, actually, am I allowed to ask for help? Am I allowed to ask you, Shannon, like what you think about my idea? So I'm so glad you brought that up, because we need to keep doing that. So everyone listening, I always say, like, go out, text a friend, attend your friends' events, buy their books, help promote them, do whatever you can. And if someone, I never say no to anyone. If anyone asks for my advice, I give it to them. So just to be open for that and keep those doors open. Because I know I'm sure early on, you had some very influential and supportive women in your life. I've also had the opposite, which I don't have enough time to talk about that, but I like to focus on the ones that helped. And then always keeping that door open to like take that next round of women with you. I love that. So what do you wish for women in midlife?
I wish that they would get to do something that they look back on at the end of their life and they say, that was really audacious. That was really courageous. And that doesn't mean they have to be successful, even if they failed, that they feel like they pursued something they were passionate about. And again, that can be a small thing, that can be a big thing, that can be additive, or it can be taking something away. I think it's really important that we feel like we've taken risks in our life, but I also think it's a really important example for our kids.
I love that. I love that. A final question before a final question. What do you think the best thing is about being in midlife?
Oh, I feel like I finally have some chill. I was very reactive, I think, as a human being until midlife. I wasn't able to have that sacred pause, if you will, whether it was with my husband or my kids, my colleagues, myself. And I really can now think about how I want to respond to certain situations, respond in a more mature and measured way that is based on wisdom and security. You know, I'm a much more secure person than when I was younger. I feel healthier than I've ever felt in my life. I feel more powerful than I've ever felt in my life. I have more autonomy. I'm not so judgmental. I'm listing a lot of things, but I just, this is my favorite time of life so far. I wouldn't trade anything to go back to being in my 20s or 30s. I have the added advantage of being an empty nester, and I feel sort of like I'm living what I didn't get to live in my 20s, which is really a fun time of life. And you know, I have great kids who are friends now. So um, I love being 52.
I love that. I love that. A lot of my guests have said some of the same things who just, and what makes me really happy to hear is that nobody wants to go back. Nobody wants to go back to 20s, 30s. I don't even want to go back to 40.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to be here to actually appreciate that and know. So everything you said, I resonated with every single thing that you said. And I was having this conversation just yesterday with some friends about something that you said about being able to approach things not as reactive, because we all know how we acted in our 20s and 30s, and everything was a crisis, everything was on fire. We had to analyze and talk to 80 people. So now we've got that wisdom. So we know we can step back and like analyze and evaluate before we go like, and that alone, I think there's a price of admission being
Yes.
in your 50s.
Yes.
It's like, that is like a godsend, a godsend. But I love everything that you said. All right. So I want you to finish this sentence. Every guest does. So I want you to complete this. I'm not too fucking old to
Do the biggest thing I've done in my entire life.
woo. If the mic wasn't connected and we make a big bang, we'd drop that mic with that one. I love it. That's exactly how I feel.
I don't feel like the best days are behind me. I feel like they're ahead of me.
Oh, amen. Hallelujah. I feel the same way. And I want that for everyone listening. That's why you're listening to this show. We know that, yes, midlife comes with a lot of stuff, but it also comes with so much opportunity. And if we look at the bright side and open ourselves up, anything is possible. I truly believe anything is possible. It has been incredible talking with you, Shannon. Thank you so much for being here. Like, I'm actually honored that I'm so honored that you're on my show. And I know that the women listening are just going to walk away feeling so inspired and ready to take action and have that little bit of courage to go towards something that they want. Remember, you guys, it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be the smallest, most fabulous thing in the world, and it's going to mean everything because you believed in yourself. And so thank you for like leading the way and being audacious. I love that word for you. So where can we find you, support you, get all the things?
Thank you. Well, let me say back to you, I really appreciate what you're doing, because I think you're sort of playing that role that we were talking about before, creating a community where women can share information. And so that's such an important role. Thank you for doing it. I am on most social media outlets at Shannon R. Watts, including Substack, where I post a lot about the issues that we've been talking about during this conversation. And so find me on social media. The book I talked about that I'm working on will be coming out in 2025. So maybe we can have a conversation then when it does, because I think it'll be really relevant. But yeah, I would love to see people on Substack and on Instagram, and not so much on Twitter anymore, but I love having online conversations and hearing about other people's experiences.
I love it. Well, thank you for all that. And for sure, when you have that book, we will have you back on to talk about it. And since I found out, everyone, that, because I'm in Northern California and so is Shannon. So now my mind is spinning of ways to do things and connect
Would
and help
love to see you in real
elevate.
life, as our kids say.
Yes. I will be looking forward to that. Well, Shannon, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing so much more of you.
Thank you.